What's up, guys? So this is a video on how I look at dirt bikes when I go to buy them on Marketplace or whatever. These are the things I look for, how I determine if I'm going to buy something or if I'm going to make an offer on it or if I'm going to walk away. I'm not a mechanic. I just buy a lot of stuff. And this is how I look at them and check them out. You might have a different way of doing it, or there's might be some things that I miss. This is for the person that's kind of like me, that's not a mechanic or anything, but just going out, kind of taking a look at something and seeing if it's worth their time. I do flip a lot of bikes and I do keep them, but most of the time I'm trying to turn them, make a little bit of money, or at least break even. So I'll use these as an example. First thing I would do is I would come over here and squat down and look at the engine. And the reason I do this is because if I see anything leaking out of this head, you know, any coolant or anything like that, any major leaks on any seams, that's pretty much going to push me away, because that's something that I don't want to mess with and that I don't do unless I get it really cheap and risk it. I would continue on coming around the other side, checking this as well. I've had these leak before. Now, if it hasn't been started yet, you probably won't see anything. A lot of times people will clean stuff up. But this is just what I do when I first look. I also, while I'm down here, I would check for any, like this right here. That's the guy, he put some sealant on here. But really all he had to do, I think, was put like a zip tie. But he did that just because these have a tendency to leak a little bit. That doesn't really push me away or anything. I checked the rubber gaskets along the carburetor and stuff in here. I don't know if that's a crack or not, but I checked that as well. And of course, I'd be asking questions as I'm doing this, like how long have you had it, hasn't been maintained, any leaks, stuff like that. Also check the water pump area, any where there's a gasket, see if there's any leaks there. Maybe look in the front here as well. Then I kind of go from here and see if the radiators are dented up at all. I've had these like caved in before, not even leaking. But if this checks out good so far, I continue to move on. Now let's say if I seen a big old leak down here, like coolant was down here on the head, I pretty much would say, are you really flexible on the price? Because it looks like you have like a head gasket leak on here. And if they said no, I'd say, all right, well, I'll pass, because I'm not going to mess with it, right? Well, let's just say all that checks out. Say all that checks out. I would continue on. Check the plastics, make sure they're all good, radiators, right? I'd check the front, make sure these axles, this tire and wheel isn't wobbling. Sometimes these will shake and just the whole wheel will wobble back and forth. If it does, that would give me an indication that it needs some new wheel spacers, or the inside of this wheel is shot. So you have to take that into consideration. I've ridden bikes with these shot out for a long time, but of course you don't want to keep it like that. But you could negotiate on the price, or go from there as well. Tires are always good to check. Also, you might have a bunch of tread, but you want to see if there's any cracking on these tires as well. I mean, they'll hold air a lot of times. They got tubes inside of them, but still another way to negotiate on it. Also, ask the person, hey, do these hold air, or did you have to put air in them? Because there might be a leak. And if they say, well, yeah, we had to add air, well, how long does it take before it leaks out? A couple hours, a day, you know what? Those are all good questions to ask. Then I swing around back here, check the, well, actually, you know what? I would check the fork seals in the front, make sure that the fork seals aren't leaking. Those are not cheap unless you do it yourself. I know they quote like a couple $100. Now I've ridden these dirt bikes with fork shields that leak crazy. So I bought them that way, but I do negotiate when the tires are cracked, the fork seals are leaking, stuff like that. While I'm up here too, I'll check for the brake pads as well, and I'll also check when I test ride it, make sure it stops good. Then I just continue on checking the plastics. A lot of times these plastics are fairly cheap, right? But if this air box is cracked, that's going to cost you some money. Some more than others on bikes, but just something to think about. These are easy to replace, but these aren't so easy. Also tanks, you can check this as well. I forget to do this sometimes, but take this off and see if this or this is stripped out. If that tank's stripped out, there's nothing you can really do about it but get a new tank on it. So something to keep in mind, and tanks are not cheap. So you could walk away or negotiate the price on that. Grips, you know, you're looking at between $10 and $30. Levers, you know, 20 to 50. These KTMs have hydraulic setup, so you want to make sure that hydraulic setup works good, because that could cost you some money there. And also down here, you want to check this as well. Now, this bike doesn't have a hydraulic clutch, so some are different, but those are things to take into consideration. Also, check here if there's any leaks coming, any oil coming out behind the sprocket, stuff like that. Make sure this isn't stripped. All right, that's really important. And because that shaft strips out, that's trouble there. Also, make sure that your drain bolts aren't stripped, or as I've heard, welded on. Come back here, check your chain as well. Make sure it's good. Make sure, also here's another thing. Oh, it might be good here, but also make sure that there's still some adjustment left. Now, while you're down here looking at your adjustment, make sure that you can adjust it. Now, this thing isn't welded up or stripped out or anything like that. And you can also ask those questions too. Now, like on this, you see this sprocket, how it's wore right here. I didn't even notice that, but this was wore out. So I had to fix this because it was bent so it wouldn't wear into the sprocket or chain anymore. Kids are doing something they shouldn't. So I would check those adjustments. Same thing here. Wiggle this, and also check your back tire. Same thing. Check for cracks, any dry rot, stuff like that. And also when you're riding them, when you're test riding the bike, if you can safely, have someone or look back when you're riding, see if you see any wobble in the front or rear tire, or have someone watch it when you do it. Go back here. Two-strokes are a little different. They got soot and stuff like that from the two-stroke mix, so it's kind of hard to tell. But if it's a four-stroke, I would be checking, see if it's like flinging out some oil out there or anything like that. Same thing back here. Go to the back, check the brake pads, make sure you still have some brake pads. Once again, if they don't, you want to negotiate. Also, check those pads and make sure you check that they work. Because I've had pads and not work, and I've had this work with no pads. So just keep that in mind. And then shocks as well. We talked about the front. I would take this, kind of compress it, make sure that they're working, and also the rear one as well. Back here, see if there's any leaks or anything that looks wrong or misplaced or cracked. You know, check the swing arm for any cracks. It's really important. Frame, subframe, stuff like that. Like even this one, it's got a little crack right there, but nothing to worry about. And that's how I would look it over that way. And of course, I'd ask questions. Have you did any fork seals, any gaskets, any leaks, anything wrong with it? Is overheat, Oh yeah, check the coolant. Make sure that there's coolant in there. If not, ask them, hey, when's the last time you checked the coolant? Because you never know, it might be burning coolant or leaking coolant. Next would be starting it. Now starting it, hopefully the person kept it cold. I always say, hey, don't start it before I get there. If it hasn't been started all day, just let me see what your cold starting procedure is and how difficult it is to start. And then I would ask, hey, can I start it? Because if I can't start it, well, there's no reason for me to have it, right? So I would come over here and turn the gas on and say, hey, does it need choke? And they'd say yes or no. If it doesn't, I'd try to kick it without it, or I just do the regular procedure. Gas on, choke on. Also, see, I pulled the clutch in, let it out. You hear it kind of rattling. That's the clutch making noise. That's not like the engine itself, making the noise. As in anything that me personally, I wouldn't be too concerned about. Some clutches are louder than the others. But I pulled that in to see if I could hear like any loud noises, like in the top end, anything that didn't sound correct. So I let the clutch out, clutch in. I don't know if it catches that on camera, but just something to keep in mind. And now, of course, I would make sure it goes through the gears well and shifts good and rides good. Also, after you shut it off like that, what I would do is instantly try to kick it over again. Especially after you test rode it. Because some bikes I've had multiple bikes. Starts up fine, but then won't start after. I've had bikes not start and then only start when they're warm. So there's a lot of different ways, but I would go through that. Then I would ride it, of course, go through the gears, make sure the clutch doesn't slip. I would go through the gears. So I keep getting distracted because the kids are messing around. I would go through the gears, and also to check the clutch, what I would do is, let's say I'd start going shit first, second, third. I get to like fourth, kind of lug it, and then I would accelerate, get it going, and then accelerate fast and see if it just kind of picks up with the RPMs, or if the RPMs pick up but the bike doesn't move with the RPMs. That'll tell you, hey, that's one way to check if your clutch is strong. Because I've had bikes, I've even had cars too, where it'll drive fine, but as soon as you put real hard pressure on that clutch and engine, until you do that, it seems fine, but then you do that and it slips. So that's the way I check my clutches. I don't pull spark plugs out and do compression tests, stuff like that. That's just, I don't know. I'd never done a, personally, like I said, I'm not a mechanic. I'm just a person that buys dirt bikes. So, I forget where I was. Kid coming over and asking me questions. Oh, I've never done compression tests or anything like that while I'm buying a dirt bike. Never had to. So that's a little bit deeper into stuff. These are just the things that I do when I check something out. Like I said, I test ride it, I get it up to temperature, and then after I shut it off, I come back and I check. And I see, is there anything leaking? Because we bought a KTM one time, and after you ran it for about 5 minutes, it would leak right out of those bolts. We had to take it right back to the guy. He told us to. And he had it for another 3 weeks, and it still was doing it. Ran perfectly too, but still it was leaking out those bolts right there sometimes. Really weird. So that's how I look over the bikes. At that point, depending on what it was, let's say I'll give you a little quick one. If it needs tires, I'm looking at trying to get $300 off. All right. If it needs fork seals done, I'm looking at getting $200 off. All right. So that's $500 off the top. If it needs plastics, I'm looking at getting $200 off. You know, seat cover, you know, $50 off. So let's say I come to look at this bike and it needs tires and plastics and a seat cover. You know, I'm going to try to get $500 off. You know, that's just kind of how I would look at it. But if it was like this, the way this is, and it rode right, coming to look at a bike like this, $2,500, doesn't need anything, runs good. I came to look at it for $2,500 because I think it's worth it. So I would probably be like, well, let's see how cheap I can get it for. I'd say, hey, you know, we take $2,000 in case anything pops up on me, I got to do something, you know, or I would take it the way it is for $2,500. It all depends. I'd feel the person out, see if he, what he wants to do. And at the same time, if the guy's like, hey man, the bike's a good bike, you got nothing to worry about, it's something you want, you know, let's make a deal, and we make a deal. If he's firm on it, then I got to think about, okay, am I cool with the way this is? But if it needed stuff, I'm going to ask for a better price on it. So that's how I look at dirt bikes. Main thing is the frame, is there any major leaks? Is any major cracks on the frame? And does it run good? Because if it's all cosmetic stuff, that's not as big deal. Unless it's like a 2006, you know, CRF 150F or something. Can't get plastics for them. At least I couldn't. You know, then, you know, certain bikes you can't get stuff for. So, or like this one right here, this bike, these plastics and stuff, seat cover, headlamp, this stuff cost more than this stuff did, these plastics. So it'd be good to have your phone with you, Google plastics, stuff like that while you're looking at the bike to do a negotiation. But the bike's priced right, the guy's legit. Hey man, I mean, yeah, try to negotiate, but if it's the bike you want, you know, go ahead and buy it if the price is right. So that's how I do mine. Hopefully this helps somebody. That's how I look at bikes and look them over and justify purchasing them. So thanks for watching. I'll do one on the 4-strokes. It's about the same thing. Just like on this 2-stroke, it's the same. It's just an older bike. You know, of course, prices will be different, but all in all, I'm still looking at the same stuff, checking for the same problems, and doing the math in my mind, seeing what it's going to cost me and if it's worth the purchase. Thanks for watching. As always, God bless.